Okay, let's undertake the equals method, and basically this method will return a Boolean, which is basically true or false, in case you give it an instance of the same of the same type. That has to be checked first, and then it will check the attributes if they're equal. So let's get started with that. So public Boolean, and the method is called equals. And here's where it gets interesting. As a parameter, this has to be of object type. And let's call it object-o. Okay? I don't need this space right in front of it. There you go. Okay? So we want to make sure that, first of all, is this object-o an instance of this class that we started out here called products, right? So we want to make sure that, first of all, if that's true. If it's not, then we will return false. There's no point of testing any further if the attributes are the same. Okay? So that's one of the first tests we're going to be doing. So an if statement, and we could say something like that: if not, O, instance of. And in our case, called parts. Right? So what is our class called? Oh, products. I'm sorry, products. So we're going to go over here. We're going to call it products. Right? So products. If it's not an instance of that, then we will simply return false. We can test it out real quick right here. Okay? So let's see, what else? Let's make sure our curly braces are correct. Everything is in place. Let's see here. And we're going to do, okay, if it is an instance of it, then we'll have an else, and we will evaluate all of the attributes. But right now, what happens if it is? Else. Well, if it is, then what we want to do is check if every attribute of O is the same. Well, we're going to need to create an object right now based on O, are the same attribute of the present object we're comparing to. If that's true, then we're going to compare each one of them. Then we will return a Boolean. So basically, we will return if these tests return a true. If the product ID is equal to, but before I do this, let's go ahead and create products. And let's do a products object. And equals products. So basically, we're typecasting it to this with O. Now, this equals, I'm right here. So let me just put this here. And let's go over here. The products object dot its own product ID. That's one thing. Next, we also want to make sure that name, the actual name, is also the same as the product name. So, and by the way, that's a string. So we could use the equals method that comes with a string. Well, why not? We could do the dot equals. And that would be product object dot name. Right? So do not confuse, our equals here is our custom equals. This equals here comes with string, so it's already part of strings. What else we want to do? And we want to also compare, well, let's move it over here. And let's make sure we're not messing any parentheses here. We're good. So name is a string. Great. So what do we have? We have price. So what was it? Unit price equals product object dot unit price. And we want to also make sure that the quantities are the same. So quantity on hand equals product object dot quantity on hand. So all of these have to be true. So I'm getting a little red squiggly line there. So let's see if, so I'm going to put a semicolon here. There you go, and it's gone, right? So that's what we need right there. So we're going to return, if all of these are true, then we will return a true. Remember, this is an AND operator, and. So that means if one of them goes wrong, which means it's false, then this will return false. So let's say the quantity on hand wasn't the same, then they're definitely not the same object. If the price isn't the same, the name isn't the same, definitely product ID isn't the same, then they're not the same object. So it's got to be exactly the same. So this test here first to be an instance of product, and then afterwards, if it's true, which means we're going to be in the else part of this, we will check the actual attributes. Let's go ahead and test it out now. Let's go over here. So we've printed out P1. Let's create P2. Let's create a product P2. So I'm going to make a copy of it. Just copy here. Just copy exactly the same way. I'm going to call this one P2. As you can see, squiggly line over P1 because you can't have this redeclare the same product. So now P1 and P2 are equal. I can actually print P2 as well. So let me copy this. And if I print this, they're pretty much the same. But that's not good enough. We're going to compare these two if they're equal. So we could have an if statement. If, right? P1 equals P2. If that's true, right? Or you could use the equals method. Dot, right? So you could use the equals just like we did with strings, right? So we could use the equals, and then we'll do P2. If that's true, then we could say system.out.println, they are equal. They're not the same object. They're two different objects, but they're equal. So let's go ahead and put a semicolon, else system.out.println, they're not equal. Okay? All right, so let's run it. And you can see here it says they're equal. Fantastic. Let's change this to 10. So I've changed one attribute to 10, P2. So let's see what happens. And they're not equal because one of the attributes is not equal. So you can change anything. So 23.01. So if I'm off by a cent, let's see what happens. They're not equal. So slight difference, and they're not equal. Quantity-wise, I have 4. Let's see what happens. They're not equal, right? Excellent. So let's put a 3, and let's say I want to compare it to a string, Henry. So Henry is not an instance of P1. Henry is a string. It should say not equal. And they're not equal. So it's comparing, is Henry an instance of P1? Obviously it's not. What happened is it did this test right here. This came out to false. So it didn't even need to go and check for every attribute. However, if it's a P2, for example, right here, then it will definitely check for the actual attributes for equality. So that would be under the else, and we'll be doing this. We'll be doing this test. All right, so now that we've done pretty much all the methods we need for the products class, we would like to create the class for the product node. So we can build up our product linked list so that when we go to this application, we can actually utilize a linked list of type products. I'll see you next time.